I'm going to try to get through this without coughing 6,000 times. So where I left off is that this is the abdominal pelvic region. So remember, you're going below the sternum, and we're going to take this area and we're going to divide it into a tic-tac-toe board, and these are called the 9 regions. Now, the names for the regions actually mean something, like if you break the word down in Latin. So I'll just go through those, and you should also take note of what body organs, like in this picture, you can see are in each of the region. To make the tic-tac-toe board, notice that the horizontal lines are drawn underneath the rib cage, and then at that point, right where the hip bones flatten out and come across at the top of the hip bones. And then the right line and the left lines that are vertical, they are in the middle of your clavicle, which is your collarbone up here. So if you go to the middle of the clavicle and come straight down. Now remember, we're excluding the thoracic or chest cavity. Okay, so going across the top row, on the 2 sides, it's called the hypochondriac. And if you actually break that word down, hypo means below, and chondriac is referencing the cartilage, the word cartilage in Latin. So these ribs are actually connected onto the sternum with little pieces of cartilage. So this is called right hypochondriac because it's the right side of the body, and it's just below that cartilage. It's actually on the side, but they're calling it below. And then this would be the left hypochondriac. Notice most of the right hypochondriac is occupied by the liver. If you didn't know, that's what that is. And then over here in the left hypochondriac region, you've got your stomach, you've got your spleen, that's that little purple guy hidden back there, and then you have some large intestine. In the middle of the top, it's called the epigastric region, which is kind of the center, like an epicenter of this gastric stomach. So the stomach is like right in the middle, and that's where it joins up with the small intestine. You can see the gallbladder. And then again, this is the colon or the large intestine, and this is the small intestine. Some of the small intestine that links off the stomach is tucked underneath that large intestine piece. So hypochondriacs, and then this is the epigastric region. Okay, now going to the next row. So you're dropping down. Look at how we're seeing a ton of intestines. So this area here in the middle is the umbilical region, because your belly button would be located in that region if it showed the skin. And then the back, if you remember from regions, the loin area, the big part of your back, lower back, that is called lumbar. So these are the 2 of the 9 sections that are describing that area, which would align. If you wrapped around the back, you'd be right at those big backbones or the loin. So you've got the right and the left. Don't forget mirror image when you look at a diagram from the front view. And then if you go to the bottom, the 9 regions, you've got the term inguinal, which, if you again remember, those are regional terms for groin. And if you look at here, we don't have very much in this right inguinal. This is the area where the small intestine and the large intestine join together. And this little dilly-dangy here, that is the appendix. This also might be called the iliac because of the part of the hip bone. This is the ilium. So some books will call it the iliac. This is hypogastric. Remember, this is epigastric, which is mid stomach. This is below all the stomach. And in fact, it's way below. So it's kind of weird, but it's hypogastric region. And this is where it's kind of covered up with the words, but the rectum is, the bladder will be located in there. And if you move some of the stuff out of the way, you can see some of the reproductive structures. And then, of course, this is the inguinal, the left inguinal, and most of that is got a little piece of the descending colon and the sigmoid, which is that S, which I wouldn't expect you to know the parts of the colon because that's the purpose of you taking this class. So here it shows other names. Even here it's showing hypogastric. Sometimes it's called pubic. region because it's bam right there. But that's basically what they're telling you. So they're telling you that these bottom lines are transtubicular, which are a structure that we haven't learned. It's on the hip bones called the tubercle. And then I talked about that midclavicular. So this is just another view. This time you can see a little more of the organs. Like here they've got the intestines pushed out of the way so you can see that your bladder is in there. So for this part, make sure you know the 9 tic-tac-toe names, which aren't too hard because these are always in pairs on the left and right. And then in the middle, I feel like these are pretty easy. They have gastric in them and umbilical smack in the middle. So maybe just a kind of weird word, hypochondriac. It's not somebody who's always sick. I mean, it is, but not in this term. And then the other thing that we might do is this, if there's more broad description needed of an area, say pain in it, just this pinpoints it specifically somewhere in here. But if the pain is more broad, instead of 9 regions of the abdominopelvic, we can take it and divide it just into 4. So if you look, go down the middle of the sternum, and then the horizontal line is drawn across the top of the hip bones. And so you have this, these are easy. These are called the RUQ, which is the right upper quadrant. This is the LUQ, left upper quadrant. And then the bottom 2, of course, are the lower quadrants, RLQ and LLQ. So often they'll use those abbreviations. Again, taking note, you're getting more regions, so you've got more parts. Remember back here, if you looked at this left iliac, now this one shows it's got a little more intestine, but you know, every person's a little different. In this person, we're really just getting a smidge of that large intestine. If you go quad, look how much different the view is. Okay, so this is them again. So they're used a lot of time to make notes of the pain experienced in the abdominopelvic region by a patient, maybe a positioning of a tumor or any other abnormality. So these are the checkpoints that you should be able to do from that section. And then this last section we will go over tomorrow in class, which is about medical imaging. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Bye-bye.